First, thank you for this opportunity to give you an update. I am Matija Obreza. I'm head of Genebank Information Systems at the Global Crop Diversity Trust, and I have been involved with Genesys development and operations since 2013. So I was asked to give this presentation because well, Genesys has been out there for a while, and it does contain a lot of data and also information from your end. So just try to explain the background here. Genesys is an online portal where gene banks publish information about their collections for the general users, the researchers. And the main function of Genesys is then to make this data from gene banks available to users online to search, download, analyze, use in their work. The development started in 2008 in collaboration with Biodiversity International, and the first Genesys went online in 2011. And that version of the system collated data on about 2 million accessions from GRIN, Singer, and URISCO databases. And today, Genesys provides access to data on just over 4 million accessions. So Genesys focuses on accession-level data. So that means we're not interested in anything on the individual packet level, right? So on the individual packets of material or any type of management data, except for maybe availability. That stuff is maintained in your internal collection management systems anyway. So we're targeting only material in ex situ conservation, meaning material maintained by gene banks with the prospect of being available in the long run. Genesys makes accessible data from the European PGR network, the Southern African Plant Genetic Resources Center, Embrapa, USDA, and a bunch of other national gene banks who mostly have smaller collections. But we work really closely with the international regional gene banks, such as the gene banks of CGIAR, WorldVeg, CATIE, CEPACT, and others. And when we do work with these, we work directly with the documentation persons in partner gene banks and help them validate, clean, and eventually then publish data on Genesys for public use. So we focus on, well, Genesys focuses on accession level data, right? So what happens internally with the collection, that is none of our interest. And this data in Genesys can help inform a number of processes in gene banks, primarily if you look at acquisition and what you want to introduce to your collection, right? You can use Genesys to explore what's already out there in other gene banks, because it might be just quicker to obtain material from another gene bank than recollecting it. If you know it exists in gene banks, then you can also figure out what's frequently available in many gene banks and what is more unique. And you can also figure out what the gaps are in collections and design your collecting missions. And for the material that you receive from another gene bank, you can get the updates on passport data of that gene bank through Genesys, and then update your own records, your own passport data in your database accordingly, right? So this mostly applies to taxonomic identification, provenance, coordinate data, and so on. And this in particular is really important for data coming from USDA, because there's a number of material from your collections in many other gene banks around the world. So there's PI numbers all over the place, and they need to be able to somehow get their updates as well through a system. Related to management, the data that's really internal to collection management is none of our business. Only the high-level data is important. So that is if the accession is still available and what type of conservation is applied. So basically in what management facilities it's maintained. So in vitro, seed collection, and so on. And finally, when it comes to making this data available to researchers and breeders, they are able to find who has the material and are able to ask for it as well, right? So in sum, just the availability of accession passport data is a really powerful tool that informs efforts on conservation of diversity, and also informs users of the availability of material. So the main function of Genesys is to facilitate access to information about material, And it's only one of the many ways researchers identify a source of material of interest, right? So there's other methods, there's journals, there's GRIN global websites. Genesys is just an additional resource that people use. So we provide a number of tools to help users find the material they're looking for, from full text search across the 4 million records. Georeference accessions are linked and are searchable by climatic parameters. We do maps, provide summaries and overviews, and all sorts of other useful functions that, including to allow users to initiate the request for material, which then gets split by Genesys and relayed to the individual gene banks around the world. And this is a complete opt-in, opt-out feature by each gene bank, and they opt in as they see fit. And as mentioned on the previous slide, these tools are really useful also for collection curators when looking for new material to introduce. So in addition to passport data, gene banks share all sorts of other stuff as well on Genesys. They publish images and other documentation linked to individual accessions. You can find information on core and mini-core collections, both old and revised versions. Trade data sets are a bit more scarce, but we help gene banks document and publish actual trade descriptors used in the evaluation and then prepare the data for publishing. So Genesys primarily makes the data and metadata available to researchers for download, so they can make their own analysis and use their own methods of selecting the most appropriate material. So we work with the gene banks individually, and when working with the curators and data managers in preparation of passport data for Genesys, we help them check the species names against GRIN taxonomy. We have tools that help them test the coordinates against the reported country of origin or country boundaries. We're able to identify things that are miscoded. If the plus minus signs are flipped with coordinates, if coordinates actually point to water. So there's a number of tools we have developed over the years to help people validate and clean their own database. So they're able to use these tools. We also provide them direct feedback on if we spot something that might need some curation. But in the end, the curators decide whether to update their internal records or not, right? Because Genesys will share the data exactly as it is provided by gene banks. And that also means that some of the records that you see in Genesys may, be incorrectly classified as potatoes, while taxonomically they are actually wheat, but that happens. Right, so all of these topics here would take much more than a few minutes to present. So I try to keep this as short as possible. I do invite all of you to have a look at Genesys. You can either Google Genesys PGR or use the link. And hopefully you'll also find something useful in Genesys that will, perhaps help you do your job in the future. So with that, I will wrap it up. So this was really a crash course on Genesys, and feel free to get in touch directly, or if there's time, we can also take some questions. So with that, thank you very much.